This week in WoW, we got some interesting stuff to talk about. We're also going to break down Mythic plus DPS charts. We usually look at the rating ones here, but I kind of wanted to break down best tanks, best healers, best DPS, looking at all of it, breaking it down, seeing how all of it stacks up. We'll see how all that looks. Here we go. Xal'atath's Bargain Devour is this week's affix for all your keystones and everything, +4 and above. So this is the one where Xal'atath periodically spawns a cast of Devouring Rift onto party members. You got to get that shit dispelled or healed off, and then you can get your little buffs and everything else. Unlock Liberation of Undermine raid skip this week. Yeah, that's right, with your Renown 5 rank. So if you've been keeping up with your ranking on your Renowns for your Renown track for the raid, you'll be able to get the raid skip this week, so you can start clearing that normal a little bit quicker, getting deeper into the raid on your heroic clears and everything else by starting with a little bit of a skip. Here's the thing. Scroll up and read my message, Sam, before you start reacting. Oh, what? I'm already reacting. I'm having some finger experiment issues. Do you mind if I switch tunes today? No, I don't mind. I don't mind if anyone switches or what you bring to raid, especially trying to get your Renown track. Here's the thing. With the Renown track, if you're actually behind, you can quickly catch up. All you got to do is really clear half of a raid. So say you haven't gotten the last 4 Renown tracks. If you full clear LFR and normal, which you can now do, by the way. LFR is fully available. If you full clear LFR and normal, that's 4 Renown tracks for you, because every half a raid is basically a Renown track. So you can get right caught up with this and be on your track to get your 5th Renown, which would give you the raid skip. So that's pretty good. Earning Heroic Liberation of Undermine raid loot can happen this week as well if you use the War Within dungeon event. That's right. Completing 4 Mythic dungeons will give you a cache that will give you a piece of heroic level raid gear. So if you're not into raiding but you want to get the gear, this is a good way to do it this week. Make sure you pick that up from the Emissary of War from Activist Frith Run. Also, this raid has been difficult, to say the least. I'm surprised, actually, because this raid's actually getting a lot of, flack for being a bit too easy. At least Gallywix, being a final boss, he was a bit too easy. But the bosses leading up to Gallywix have actually been quite difficult for a lot of guilds. Only 30 guilds have killed Mythic One-Armed Bandit in 21 days, making him the hardest 6th boss ever. If you remember, we were talking about the 4th boss being the hardest as well. What was his name? It's Sprockenjunker. Jesus Christ, these names. The one with the balls that you got to roll around and get the shit. He turned out to be very difficult on Mythic as well. So 6th boss kill. As of March 25th, 1 p.m., only 30 guilds have killed the One-Armed Bandit, currently making this the hardest 6th boss in recent history. That's actually crazy. Again, the other bosses for Nerubar Palace and everything, looking at them, these were much easier. Liberation, if you look at Nerubar Palace, 88 kills for the 6th boss here. Amir Drasil, 165. Aberrus, 266. So, I mean, this is not just the most difficult, but by far and away the most difficult when comparing them to 6 bosses from all the other past raids. So, interestingly enough, this raid, easy final boss, not so easy leading up to it. Speaking of the final boss, for Mythic, we've data mined some Mythic One-Armed Bandit and Muggsy nerfs the weekly reset, so that makes sense. Obviously, people still stuck there. So a bunch of health reductions to a bunch of the ads for One-Armed Bandit. For basically the bombs that you got to take over. Muggsy seeing some nerfs as well, damage reductions. These are all Mythic-related nerfs. Gallywix also seeing some damage reductions on normal and heroic at low group sizes, so I guess he's not scaling properly. And then a damage reduction as well to his Giga Coils, so Scatterbass and Giga Coils getting nerfed a little bit when you're playing them with smaller groups. Looking here, a Data Mine Mythic Plus tuning as well. Mythic Plus just keeps getting easier and easier. Blizzard's really trying to make this season an easier one for people out there. So this one right here, if you just look at Floodgate, we're seeing reductions for Thunder Punch and RPGG. Rookery also seeing some cast times lasting a little bit longer. And, sorry, not cast times, but the spell effects lasting a little bit less. So Dark Gravity now lasts 4 seconds, was 6. And the radius is decreased to 8, was 10. Theater of Pain also seeing some adjustments here. And then Workshop seeing a cast time increased, giving you more time to interrupt things. Now, moving on to what's most important today and what I really wanted to get into is this one right here. Looking at Mythic Plus DPS Season 2, Week 3 pre-tuning. So this is before all these effects went into, all these changes went into effect. let's see what everyone looked like and how everyone stacked up. Looking at Fire Mage here being the top DPSer in Mythic Plus. Now, this, of course, accounts for AoE damage and everything else. That's really where Mythic Plus kicks off. Unholy DK, Balanced Druid, Elemental Shaman, Ass Rogue, rounding out the tops there. Now, we're going to look at these charts again once all these effects are through this week to see how people balance out. Furry Warrior down at the bottom, Survival Hunter, Frost Mage, Arcane Mage, Augmentation Evoker, and then we see a bunch of Warlocks and shit here in the middle. Looking at the charts, who's the best tank right now? No surprise, Vengeance, Demon Hunter, they've been doing really good. Blood DK, not bad, actually. Look at that. So, doing pretty good on that front. I'm happy for my Blood DKs. Protection Paladin, Prot Warrior, Guardian Druid, Brewmaster Monk rounding out the tanks there. And then healers, we're seeing Discipline Priest was at the top, but I know some nerfs came into Discipline Priest, so we'll see how that balances out. Mistweaver Monk got some buffs, so we might see a flip here if I had to predict where these healers are going to stack up. Restoration Shaman, Resto Druid, Preservation Evoker, Holy Paladin, Holy Priest. Holy Paladin actually saw some big buffs today. Just today, if I could find that article, I could pull it up real quick and tell you what those changes were. Let me go to the first page here. That's where that was. I know I think it was like a 15% buff to Holy Paladin. Right here, yeah. Hotfix in for Holy Paladins. Dawn of Healing increased by 15%, and Sun's Avatar increased by 15%. And this is besides the changes that already went into effect on reset yesterday. So Holy Paladin going to see some changes here. And then Holy Priest down at the bottom. Now looking at DPS, who's the best right now? Pally going to give it to you, yeah. Flame Shaper, Devastation Evoker sitting at the top. We see Unholy Death Knight down one spot from the top spot. And then Marksmanship Hunter, Ass Rogue, Demonology Warlock, Enhancement Shaman. Rounding out your top 6 there. We continue on to Outlaw Rogue, Elemental Shaman, Feral Druid, and Balanced Druid for your top 10. Now, looking down at the bottoms here, let's see who's at all the way at the bottom. Ooh, Augmentation Evoker. Not having a good time down here. Beast Mastery Hunter, Destro Warlock, Arcane Mage, Retribution Paladin. One of the most played classes in the game. Doing some of the worst DPS in Mythic Plus. That's interesting. Elemental Shaman, Affliction Warlock, Frost, and Arcane Mage. Rounding out your bottom boys there. So looking at all these, again, take it with a grain of salt. Remember, this is all parsed out perfectly. So a lot of times, especially when you're doing those mid-tier to lower keys, this doesn't matter. If you're pushing a plus 21, maybe these small percentage differences will make a difference for you. But at the end of the day, it's mostly it's player skill. It's just Herald of the Sun down there. Oh, you're right. It is just Herald of the Sun. Let's see where Retribution Paladin actually... Oh, yeah. Templar is actually number 12 up here for Ret. So you're right there. Templar's in 12th place. That is correct. I do stand corrected there. This chart is actually pulling up all the specs and hero talent specs. I'm not used to that. So interesting way to look at it here. Who else is rounding out the tops? We see Sun Fury. Is that the best for Mage right now? It is. So Sun Fury, Fire Mage rounding out the top boys there for Mages. Interestingly enough, as I said, player skill matters more than a lot of this shit. But really, that is all in terms of news.